Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Punisher War Journal number 10, cover dated November 1989. So this is a little bit unusual for the channel. Generally, of course, as you know, I review X-Men or X-Men related comics. But in my recent review of Marvel Age number 104, which was a special feature on X-Men number 1 and featured an interview and profile with Jim Lee in the summer of 1991, he was asked the question, which works was he most proud of? And he referenced Uncanny X-Men 274, that's the one of Magneto and Rogue and Kazar in the Savage Land. And X-Men number 1, of course, which hadn't been released by that point. And also this, the Punisher War Journal number 10. So he was especially proud of this one. And this one, 1989, it's about 3 years into Jim Lee's professional career at Marvel. And he had come a long way from his start in 1986 on Alpha Flight number 51. So the cover here is by Jim Lee and inked by Carl Potts. Carl Potts is the writer of the Punisher War Journal. Just something to note before moving into the interior of the book, and it is the corner box. So the corner box there, this also by Jim Lee. You've got the Punisher in red. You've got the silhouette of the slats over his face and on the back wall. And Jim Lee also in that interview in 1991 in Marvel Age said that, you know, one of his major influences was Frank Miller on Daredevil, and that is very much a motif that he's taken from Frank Miller's run on Daredevil. So what we've got here on the cover is a tank versus an Apache helicopter. It's Frank Castle in the tank with the Punisher logo on the turret. And we've got this character here whose code name is Sniper, and he's back and he's firing at the Punisher. So kind of the story is about a tank versus a helicopter in some way, and Punisher versus Sniper. So let's open this one up to the splash page. So we've got a big splash panel here of an MI-A1 Abrams main battle tank, as the voiceover says, "Ladies and gentlemen, we now present to you the M1A1 Abrams main battle tank. The computerized fire control with laser rangefinder combined with a sophisticated stabilization system permit accurate firing on the move," demonstrated in the second panel there, where it takes out another tank. So the creative team for this issue is Carl Potts, credited with story, Jim Lee pencil, Scott Williams inks. And this is one of the first, not the first, but one of the first pairings of Jim Lee and Scott Williams, a famous penciler inker team ever since, and particularly since their run on Uncanny X-Men and X-Men. Jim Novak letters, Greg Wright colors, and there we go. I always like this kind of inside credit page for Punisher War Journal. It's very designy, black and white, looks nice. So the title of the story is Second Shot. And there's quite a lot of words in the setup part of this issue. I'm not going to read everything out, but I will focus on the first person narration here, because it turns out this is the Punisher narrating. That's part of the shtick or kind of narrative device of the Punisher War Journal. We get entries from his journal. So he's here setting the scene. Central Europe with its rolling open terrain and scattered woods and prime country for both tanks and helicopters. Some feel that the days of the big tank are numbered. What with the new one-man recoilless rifles, TOW number 2 missiles and smart mines that hide themselves in road or brush when dropped by aircraft or artillery. Then there are the copters, Cobras, and the current state of the art, the AH-64 Apache, which we will see feature in this issue. Others argue that the optimum conditions for all these anti-tank arms are rare on the battlefield. Confusion, fear, smoke, bad weather, and a lack of first-class training could give tanks the edge. Add the new anti-air tracked vehicles and armoured infantry carriers to the tank force, and it may prove victorious in copter encounters. And we're going to see a little tank force unit up against the Apache in this issue. And then the Punisher continues, but copters can cross blown bridges and clogged roads. the debate goes on and on. They play simulator games and do field exercises to try to figure it all out. So that's what's going on in these panels. So the Punisher and Microchip are at an arms show in West Germany. And this is, this issue came out in July. It's cover dated November, but it was put together and published before the fall of the Berlin Wall in October 1989. So funny that here, and none of the characters, nobody foresaw the fall of the Berlin Wall and how swift that was back in 1989, autumn 1989. And so these guys, like these intercut scenes here, these horizontal panels, these are doing computer simulated war games, and they're in training for a live war game the next day. So we've got intercut scenes of the arms show and the American soldiers training for war games the next day. And then to continue with Frank's first person narration, but only one thing will ever settle the question, and everyone in his right mind hopes real war will never come to deliver the answer. But we're going to see the question settled in this issue. So here we've got Frank and David Lieberman, which is the real name of Microchip here. That's his code name because he's a computer expert. And yeah, so they're enjoying the show in West Germany. And then a few hours later, we see the guys who were in training out with the actual tanks, and their officer in command saying to them, "You men did great in those last few simulations. Tomorrow, I expect we'll be the ones causing many an Apache crew to see red." Okay, so all set up. But there's going to be a complication, of course. And here it comes. Here, that night, outside of a high security NATO base in West Germany, we have a sniper. The first line of defense, he thinks, trifoliate orange hedges. Here's how to avoid the 4-inch spikes from the hedge, and he vaults over the hedge. And then several miles away, we've got Frank and Microchip having their evening dinner, like a trip, enjoying the real German beer. And Punisher, as ever, focused on the mission. Don't forget why we're here, Micro. And Microchip speaks German, which is interesting. He seems to have developed a little relationship with the waitress there. And then we're back with Sniper infiltrating the NATO base. And he shoots this exterior guard with a dart, a drug dart, and then is able to bypass the security systems, biometric security systems. And then here we see that he's going to that he knifes the guard after he's finished using him. And then he's in stealing files that will be worth megabucks to whomever he sells them to. So something to note about the art on these two pages. So there's a great combination from the team here, penciler, inker, and the colorist Greg Wright as well. Greg Wright really had his own palette of colors. See this rich blue here for the violet of the night, and like really works very well. I like the way that these pages look. And also something else to note in terms of Jim Lee's art here, not scrimping on backgrounds. He's really going for it with the interiors of these spaces. So everything grounded, nobody standing, like hovering in the air. Absolutely well figured out architectural spaces for the characters and the story. So then they're back in their hotel room, and Microchip is getting ready to access a computer system. So he's getting ready to hook up the modem, and Punisher here is thinking, like, he's got his Kevlar vest on, and he's thinking here, I've been ready for Sniper for a long time. That's who he's come to Germany to hunt for. And then we get the backstory between these two. Back in Vietnam, Rich von Burien was the Corps' top sniper. Years later, I learned he turned into a military drug ring's top assassin. He even killed off most of our former squad when his boss deemed it politically expedient. I let him slip away a few times when it looked like innocents would get caught in the crossfire. All that did was let him escape to kill more innocents each time. Last time I let him go to save that cokehead reporter's life. He let her go, all right, but the cops found the chopper pilot later slit ear to ear. So this Von Burian character, not a nice guy at all. Great rendition of the Punisher's face here. Again, great inking from Scott Williams, very fine hatching, a trademark of his, very fine lines on the stubble on Castle's jaw as well. And we've got that classic device of the curved panel to indicate flashbacks. So really, if you were just picking up this issue on its own, you wouldn't be lost in terms of what's going on here, who the characters are, and why the Punisher is hunting after Sniper. And that's how it was for me, because as soon as I read Marvel Age and that Jim Lee talked about or mentioned that this was one of his own personal favorite art jobs, I had to hunt down this issue as a back issue, so I didn't have any of the other Punisher War Journal issues. And really, I could understand everything at the time without having those other issues. So this is kind of a done-in-one story. And so Microchip is into the computer system, but just at the exact same time, Sniper is in the computer system too. And so he sees that there's an outside hacker trying to get where I've been. I recognize this technique, he thinks, as we get his grin there and the green glow from the monitor of the 1980s computer. And no one outside of myself, Micro, and one or two others could have gotten this far into the system. Time to take off, but I left a pile of garbage for him to plow through, which Microchip sees there. What the F is going on? That makes no sense at all. Better pull out. So here we have Sniper outside, and he is gleeful about the bundle that his clients will pay for the final thing he's going to steal, which is the Apache helicopter. And then Frank is dealing with his, having a little shave there. Microchip has been watching the TV and gives a report on, or communicates to Frank a report on a break-in and theft at a top security NATO facility a short while ago. It's the same base I was hacking earlier when I started dueling with another hacker. Got to find out who it was, says Punisher. Go back in and try to find out more, see if it fits Sniper's MO. So Microchip goes back in and he says most of the info was on the series of NATO war games currently underway. They're testing armor versus the new Apache anti-tank copters. Tons of info on the Apache Taken 2. Seems to be the thief's main interest. Got to cut the connection now. So Punisher concludes, this fits with the Sniper's MO of late. He may make a play to swipe the real thing. Let's stick tight to the Apache at the show tomorrow. This is a nice little top-down view of Punisher here, a Microchip in the chair, the desk and the computer. Very nice work here with all of this dialogue around it. So quite a bit of dialogue, as I said earlier, in the first half of the issue. So next morning, early next morning, Sniper arrives in the uniform he stole, kills the guards outside the hangar where the Apache helicopter is. It's fully armed, so he runs through what it's got: some Hellfire missiles, 2 rocket pods, and an M23 0E1 chain gun. And so he thinks, I'll be virtually invulnerable. So his plan is to destroy the other 2 Apache so they can't go after him and fly away in this one. Next morning at the arms show, Castle here, he's kind of in disguise with this hoodie. It looks like a hoodie and glasses. And Microchip here, who can speak German, which is what the people are speaking, says, the Apache's been stolen. Of course it has, but not from here, from a French NATO base. Right, so Sniper went to France to pick up the Apache. So Microchip overhears that some of these folks seem to think the flight to East Germany is too long for the thief. The chance they feel the thief will fly it to the Mediterranean, maybe to a ship that will cart it to Bulgaria. So Punisher's upset by that. You know, Frank, if they're wrong, and if he flies it straight to East Germany, the flight path could come right near here. So, you know, of course it's going to go right near there. A short while later, just as the NATO games are about to get underway, so we've got this team from yesterday. We saw them in the computer training scenario, and then Microchip and Frank have borrowed some uniforms, and they're posing as American soldiers. And Microchip has the captain's uniform, so he's commanding the lieutenant here. Lieutenant Curtis, I'm Captain Siri, this is Lieutenant Wall. We have an emergency. Your whole group is to load up with live ammo. We're going after a stolen Apache. So the lieutenant thinks it's highly irregular, but Microchip says, I said this is an emergency, get the lead out. So we've got this little armored unit here, and we're going to see it up against that Apache helicopter. Once again, to note here, just look at the level of detail here. Look at what Lee is tasked with drawing. He's drawing the Apaches here, one in the background, the tail of the other there. He's drawing cars, he's drawing these tanks, various different armored vehicles. There's a lot of work on these pages. There's no cheating, there's no cutting corners on this, unless it's this, a little bit of a blank background there, but you wouldn't begrudge it, Lee, with all the work he's putting on these pages. So the Punisher's steamed that he has to be lieutenant in their scenario, and Microchip's ordering everyone around. So Microchip gets into the M1A1, down through the turret. Let's roll, crew. And he hits the driver in the back. Great, you've got the new anti-spalling Kevlar curtains in here. I love this. Good thing the captain, oh no, he was thinking about the captain's uniform. So that point is going to come into the story later on. So Carl Potts is doing his homework on the latest military tech in 1989, and he's putting it all into this story here. So then the unit rolls out under Microchip's command. And then we our focus shifts to we have point of view from the unit, and they've got a helicopter involved as well. It is an OH-58 Scout, and it's calling to the tank group. It's detected on its radar a blip headed your way, fast, south by southeast, and then that helicopter is blown to bits, and then here, out of the trees, appears the Apache that sniper's stolen. So they open fire on the Apache helicopter. Just imagine this, imagine being tasked with having to draw this action sequence, keeping the vehicles accurate, and drawing them at angles and moving and in motion and exploding. This is great work by Jim Lee. Fantastic work. Again, cutting no corners here whatsoever. So Sniper sends off a Hellfire missile, which blows open the roof of this particular tank. It's armor piercing. So Microchip is asking that the Apache be tracked. So he flies into the woods because it's a very maneuverable helicopter. And we see in profile here Sniper saying he's figured out what he's going to do. He'll leave a surprise package for them. So he drops a flare, which they track on their infrared scope, and Microchip realizes too late they've been suckered, and he shouts out, "Look out!" But here is Sniper and the Apache, and he ambushes them from cover. 2 full pods, a rockets, and a Hellfire ought to brighten up their day. So really blows these things apart. And as far as Punisher's concerned, Microchip must be dead. So he thinks here in his first person narration, Hellfire must have melted its way into his turret. Even if it didn't get all the way in, it would have fragmented the inside of the hull, filled the turret with shrapnel. So he thinks Microchip is dead. And then Sniper, glorying in the violence, decides to show off a bit, because he's a chain gun whiz. And what does he do here? He's knocked out the tracking radar of one of the vehicles and left it blind. So Punisher thinks he'll slip through the gap before this tank or the last Bradley can block him. Have to nail him. Nail him now, no more bodies to count. So he commands the driver to move the crate around. Sniper here glorying in his kills, fish in a barrel. But he thinks he better haul it to the border while this baby's still got some ordnance left. And Punisher here realizes he's almost to the border. Think. So, and this is what he comes up with. So he contacts Von Buren on the radio and identifies himself. This is your superior officer, Frank. And Sniper finishes at Castle, and he's shocked. The Punisher, you're holding all the cards. Better come back and polish me off now, he says. Look at this great 3/4 profile and all the silhouette on the face as well. Looks great. And very, very organic. Like, this is Jim Lee before he really codifies the ciphers of his style for superhero work. This is much more naturalistic work here on this page. And as far as I'm concerned, this is influenced by David Mazzucchelli in Born Again. There's quite a resemblance there between some of the line work and some of the physiognomy here and what Mazzucchelli was doing in the early chapters of Born Again. And Lee is on record as admiring that work, as anyone would, any professional artist would. Mazzucchelli's a master. And so here we see Von Buren thinking about it. It'll be the perfect way to cap the day. It will take you 5 minutes to reach me, Von Buren, Punisher says. I'll mark my tank so you can find me. Leave the others out of this. I'm ordering the last Bradley to stand off. So he turns around to the bafflement of the East German border guards and sees that Punisher has painted the turret of the tank with the skull symbol. And basically, like Sniper says, but you're so talented, the punishing painter. You really expect to punch my armor with those pea shooters, Frankie? That's assuming you can hit me. But the Punisher isn't aiming for the Apache head on. So here he is. Feel special, Frank. I'm sending my last 3 Hellfires at you. So Frank says, hard left, aim for the missiles. That's what he's aiming for. And so the turret turns around, the gun fires off. The Hellfires go into the side of the tank, takes out one of the other soldiers, but misses Castle. So Sniper's upset. Spent my missiles and only disabled his tank. Should have used the old sucker strategy. Tough to go head on head with that. Is it S word? F word? Whatever you're having yourself. And so Punisher exits the burning tank. The crippled Vulcan is my last chance, he thinks. Jumps in through the turret. The radar on the Vulcans had it. But we can move now. The others are hiding out in the woods. So this engineer asks Punisher, geez, what's that on your chest, sir? Top secret, son. If I told you, I'd have to kill you. And look at his grim face. You have to believe him, yes? So he orders him to move the heap due east. The radar, or F the radar, put the guns on manual. So everybody's getting into the back of this. And I love this panel here, right? Okay, so the art team here are working incredibly well together, but this is just yet more proof of it. Look what we have here. We have Greg Wright in color delineating the shadow of the Apache helicopter from the air down on the soldiers. This is an amazing panel here. Tremendous work. So here we go. The Apache, like with the chain gun, he's taking down some of these soldiers. Very violent panel, this one. You know, this is in the period 1989 when the Comics Code Authority had loosened up some of its strictures. So that's why you can get a title like this published by Marvel and have this level of violence. depicted on the page. So here we go, without any kind of age restriction or warning for mature readers or anything like that. So then we have the Punisher asking the driver here, review the game computer readout on the action so far. Because remember, they were supposed to be taking part in war games. How did he take out the captain's tank? The Apache dropped a flare to draw our vehicles in. So Punisher realizes that Sniper might try the same trick twice, the same ruse twice. So Punisher's thinking here, where is he? As long as he stays low, we're both blind. His radar can't pick me up through the foliage. I was hoping he'd lied about that last Bradley crew just to goad me, because he passes by the tank here that's blown out with the dead bodies. You can just make them out here on the ground. So here's Sniper in the woods. This looks like a good spot. So he drops a flare and then he backs off, turns around thinking, come and get it, Frank. So then we're in the Vulcan. Got him, sir. Or is it another flare? Turn on the big ear microphone. See if I can pinpoint him. So Punisher says the heat source is a fake. His copter is really 120 feet northeast of the flare. Let's move to the right and outflank the B word. On our way, Lieutenant, says the driver. So Sniper's getting suspicious. Where are you, Frank? It's taking too long. He's behind you, of course. There he is. So this is a great panel here. Kiss it goodbye, Van Buren. So it's like he's taken by surprise. He's trying to pull up, but Frank sends off like hundreds of rounds with his chain gun there. Hits Van Buren in the side. His chain gun that close got through the armor. Engine sputtering, got to run for the border. Hope the East Germans have a dock close by. So he's bloodied up there, bleeding from his nose and mouth. And Punisher here is absolutely apoplectic. No, not again, not again. No escape. And look at the coloring job on him. You can see how red he is with rage and anger. And he's up on top of the Vulcan, watching the Apache limp over the border fence. And he's basically so caught up in everything. Why are you stopping? Move it, private. It's the border, sir. We can't cross. That's it. Like, the Punisher doesn't observe borders, but just not possible now unless you're going to have like an international incident. So Sniper makes it over the border. We're on our last page. He went down hard, sir, says the driver to the Punisher, and then the chopper explodes. That's it, sir. The Apache's so much trash for the Reds, and the pilot had to buy it in that inferno. Let's head back. But of course, we don't get to see a body. So, and it turns out there are survivors as they're making their way back to the shot up tanks, and Microchip's alive. And how? Kevlar curtain in the turret contained most of the spalling shrapnel. So we heard about that earlier, and that's what saved him. The latest tech. And Lieutenant Curtis, he caught a piece of shrapnel, but he'll be okay. So everything seems to have ended nicely for the lads, except, as Microchip points out, how do we get back without getting caught impersonating officers? After you, Microman. So there you go. Jim Lee's favorite art job prior to Uncanny X-Men 274 and X-Men #1. This is it, Punisher War Journal number 10. And every issue of Punisher War Journal came with one of these, an entry from the Punisher's Arsenal by Elliot Orr Brown, this particular one on the Glock 19. And the narration here is written by Elliot Orr Brown, but it's in the Punisher's voice. It's his opinion of this particular Glock 19. So they also had a letters page on the very last page. The print here, very small. And there you go. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Jim Lee's favorite art job on the Punisher War Journal series, issue number 10. If you like this video, please like it on YouTube. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.